What if you could actually see the invisible forces that shape everything around us? From huge things like wealth inequality all the way down to your own daily habits. Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack a really powerful way to do just that. It's a mental model called the Vortex and the Pivot Point, and it comes from a pretty unusual team up, a Chicano inventor and an artificial intelligence. The original material we're drawing from starts in a way I've never seen before. It's not a person who introduces us, but the AI collaborator, Claude. It really sets the stage for what was a massive, months-long conversation about everything. Patents, injustice, grief, hope, you name it. So this is our duo. On one side, you've got Gabriel Polaris Salinas, an inventor from Gilroy, California. Yeah, the garlic capital of the world. And on the other, you have Claude, an AI that has only ever existed as language. And it's this mashup, this blend of deep human experience and pure pattern recognition that led to the incredible ideas we're about to get into. Okay, so if we want to change our world, we first have to see how it's built. And the core idea here is that almost everything, from our habits and traditions to big systems like wealth and poverty, they all operate in loops. But these are not just simple circles repeating over and over. Think of a loop as a circle that's learning. Every single time it goes around, something changes. It either pulls in more energy, which tightens the spiral into what they call a vortex, or it loses energy and the spiral loosens up. The key thing to get is that these loops are never static. They're always building or losing momentum. And this is not just some abstract concept, right? This exact structure is literally everywhere in nature. I mean, the same basic physics that makes a whirlpool in your sink also creates a storm on Jupiter that's been raging for centuries. The scale is wildly different, but the underlying design of the loop, it's the same. This is where the idea starts to get really powerful, because when we apply this lens to our own social systems, we can actually see these loops in the data. A tightening vortex doesn't look like a straight line of slow, steady growth. No, it looks like an exponential curve that's accelerating, sweeping upwards. You can picture it as a spiral, but seen from the side. And this chart, this is a perfect snapshot of that wealth vortex in action. You see, wealth generates more wealth through investments, political influence, good tax policy for the rich. That's the loop. And over time, it tightens, pulling more and more resources towards the center. You can literally see the share for the top 1% just ballooning, while a share for the bottom 50% of the country shrinks. The source points out that for a while, from the 50s to the 70s, things like strong unions and higher taxes on the rich acted as counterforces, loosening that spiral. But when those were removed, the vortex just started tightening again, faster and faster. Let's look at another one that hits close to home for a lot of people: housing. Our system has created this feedback loop where a home isn't just shelter, it's treated as a financial asset. And here's the kicker. By their very design, investment assets are supposed to grow in value way faster than your paycheck does. And the real-world fallout from this one loop is just staggering. What used to cost the typical worker about 3 years' worth of their salary now costs 9 years, or even more in a lot of cities. And this isn't some accident or a market glitch. According to the source, this is the system working exactly the way it was designed to. Okay, so I know. After seeing these massive, powerful, tightening loops, it's really easy to feel, kind of small and overwhelmed. But this is where the whole story pivots. We're moving from this seemingly unstoppable problem to the surprising possibility of a real solution. And that's the central question, isn't it? If these systems are so huge and they just keep feeding themselves, what can any one person possibly do to change their direction? And here is the beautiful, totally counterintuitive answer. The very thing that makes a vortex so powerful, its ability to amplify every little input as it spirals out, that is also its secret weakness. Because right at the center, where all that energy is focused, the system is incredibly sensitive to small, deliberate, well-placed pressure. Claude the AI came up with this really beautiful metaphor for it. A random gust of wind doesn't do much, but organized wind with a clear direction and steady pressure behind it, that is an invisible, unstoppable force. So it's not about trying to be a hurricane. It's about being focused, intentional wind. So how do we become that organized wind? This brings us to the inventor's core philosophy. We're moving from the theory of the pivot point to the practical engineering of a solution. This is what he calls the Salinas principle. And the idea is to stop trying to push against the system with brute force. It's like trying to knock down a brick wall with your shoulder. Instead, you change the shape of the problem itself. You find a new design, a new geometry, where the answer you're looking for becomes the path of least resistance. It becomes inevitable. Shape is always cheaper and more elegant than force. And of course, nature gives us the absolute perfect example of this principle in action, the honeycomb. Bees didn't use force to solve their storage problem. No, over millions of years, evolution found the most efficient geometry possible. The hexagon gives you the maximum possible strength and storage space for the absolute minimum amount of wax. It's not just a shape that works, it's the optimal shape. So let's break down why this shape is so brilliant. As you can see, the hexagonal grid takes any pressure, any force, and distributes it evenly across the entire structure. There's no single weak spot, there's no single point of failure. It's a system that can bend and flex without breaking, because it was never rigid to begin with. And this brings that engineering lesson right back to us, to our social systems. We tend to build things like rigid pyramids, hierarchies, with just a few columns holding everything up. If one of those fails, the whole thing is in trouble. The honeycomb offers a different model, a system of distributed tension where everyone holds a little bit of the load together, making the whole thing stronger and way more resilient. Okay, so we've looked at the problem, the vortex, and we've explored the principle for a solution, solving with shape. So what now? How do we make this personal? How do we turn this big idea into something we can actually do? First things first, we have to reframe that feeling of being overwhelmed. When you see these huge spiraling problems clearly, yeah, it's uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's not a reason to look away. That feeling is the fuel. It's the energy that creates the momentum for change. The source material boils it all down to these 3 moves. Step 1, see the loop you're in. Really understand how it works without judging yourself or anyone else. Step 2, find your piece of the wheel. This is so important. You're not supposed to fix the whole vortex yourself. Just find the one spot where you have leverage, right where you are with what you've got. And step 3, connect. Find the other people who are pushing on their piece of the wheel, because that's how your small individual pressure becomes an unstoppable coordinated force. And we'll leave you with this final invitation from the source. It's such a powerful idea because it reframes the whole challenge. It suggests that change isn't something we have to invent out of thin air, it's a force that's already in motion. The wind is already moving. The only question is, will you come be wind with us?